Hi, I'm Tony, and this is the story of the build of this 31-foot 8-inch Jay Benford designed cruising sailboat. From the lofting of the lines to her emerging from the boat shed to receive her keel, masts and all the other paraphernalia that make up a cruising vessel. Join us on this adventure as we build Tapatya and hopefully set off to test her out as a liveaboard cruising vessel. Well, hi all. We're in the cockpit starting off today under the bimini, which is giving us a very nice bit of shelter, although the sun is behind the trees at the moment, so not too much to shelter from, but it does protect the cockpit very nicely. And it's a very big episode in a way this week, because this week marks the 5 years of this boat build. 5 years is longer than I imagined it would take, I can tell you. But part-time boat build, so I work along the way, so I've done in my spare time, family commitments of course as well, so it's what it's taken, and this is where we are. The boat is nearing completion, and in a minute I shall grab the camera and have a walk around and show you where we are, and we'll see if this wind, it's a bit breezy today, we'll see if that's affecting the microphone. But I say, I shall grab the camera, have a walk around, show you where we've got to in 5 years, what I've achieved. And when I say we, this is basically me mainly working alone. The kids help once, now and again, but the build has been done by me on my own. 5 years, part-time, family commitments, and as I say, I shall aim to show you what I've achieved in those 5 years. We're getting close. The second mast you'll see later is nearly finished now. It's halfway glassed, needs paint. I shall put a top light on the top of it, run the cable down it, but it's nearly finished now, that second mast. Other exciting things going on. I'm in communication with boat transport. I've found a yard that I want to move the boat to, where she'll be assembled, the keel, the masts and the rudder, various other bits that are basically finished and waiting to be fitted. So that will be put together at the boatyard. The boatyard itself demands third-party liability insurance, and that is now sorted. I've got insurance on the boat, so that's great. I've also this week applied for the ship's radio station licence, so I've been doing a bit of paperwork this week between times. So as I say, the first thing I want to do today is to grab the camera, walk around the boat and show you what's happened what I've achieved in 5 years of boat building. So starting at the bow end, and you can see a big old bow roller on there, and the pulpit, which is a second-hand pulpit I got from a Halberg Rassi with very nice nav lights on it. I put that little seat on so we can sit up the front. And wandering around the outside, you see the hull, 31-foot 8. Nominally, when I measure it, actually comes out a bit bigger than that. I think the 31-foot 8 is probably from the bow, not including the bow roll, or deck length, put it that way. I think it's deck length. And you see the bow roll overhangs, and when we see the aft end, there's an overhang of the coamings that makes it longer than that 31.8, I think. But hull pretty much done, missing the keel still. Number of through holes there, cockpit drain, sink drain. The bronze one's the exhaust from the engine, bilge pump outlet. And past the ladder to the aft end where the rudder will hang, so it's a double ender and stern hung rudder. It's going to hang on that end. I haven't got the rudder fittings yet, but the rudder's made. So that's what we're looking at for the outside of the hull, and I shall climb up the ladder. I won't film that and just wander around. And starting at the aft end, the cleat there, the fair leads either side, so the ropes or lines will lead through the fair leads onto that cleat, so they lead onto that cleat at the right angle. Obviously a tiller will be running over here, and I've got the aft rails still to do, and I intend to make a wind vane also. Swim ladder, those things need to be fitted in here. Lazarette hatch there with some storage in there. When I spin around, we're under the bimini. I'll show you the bimini up above us. Stainless framework for the bimini. Got some storage in there, although it goes, the quarter berth goes in underneath of that actually. Compass, plotter, and more cockpit boxes. And we'll wander up onto the deck under the bimini. So all the lines will lead back to these cleats. These cleats aren't fixed, they're just stood there at the moment while I think about the running rigging. I made these stainless partners fittings that the masts will go in, freestanding masts. She will be junk rigged schooner. Wandering forwards to looking at the foredeck there. This is what's called a raised deck with no side decks. You climb up onto the raised deck. And drop down to the forward deck. Same idea with the fair leads and the cleat there, partners fitting. And a nice little seat up on the bow fitting, the pulpit. And here I am now, sitting on that seat. It's very comfy. Looking aft at the bimini. See the little chimney there, it's Dickinson diesel stove, which can double as a heater. To allow us to do some not so particularly warm place sailing. And let's go down below and have a look. We've got a sliding hatch with washboards, traditional style. We go in down the stairs. A quarter berth on the starboard side, which should be a very good sea berth. Goes up plenty long enough up there. Galley pumps, which are old beer pumps, bronze pumps, so capable for fresh and salt water. Galley storage. Looking forward to getting the boat up to the yard to actually sort stuff out here in the galley. See where everything is going to go. And there's the old Dickinson. Beautiful diesel stove, runs really nicely. And then we've got a simple saloon with benches that could double as, or at least port side, certainly long enough for a bed. Bookshelves or shelves behind. And a V-berth up the front, which has gained one of Karen's paintings. It's been hung there. It looks very nice. Gives the place a bit of colour. I'll back up so you can appreciate the colour scheme. Very nice. All lighting's LED. On the nav station here, your traditional switch panel, VHF, AIS transceiver mounted under the nav table there. Barometer and clock. And through this door here we've got the heads. The sink there is still to be fitted properly. That's a job that's on my list. The breather for the water tanks comes out there above the sink. That was a lot of thought about that one. That's where I ended up. And what we should amusingly call a composting toilet. More of a sort of storing toilet, to be truthful. But no through holes. Nice bit of cupboard space in there, and the cardboard boxes are 4 solar panels that will be mounted on the bimini, which will also happen when we're up in the yard. And that's what there is to see, apart from my list of things to do, which is, well, seems to get longer, but actually I am working through. And here under the companionway stairs, back under the cockpit, is the engine room, all installed. The engine runs. I've got to take the sail drive out one more time and go through it, give it some paint, new diaphragm, but that's all basically done really, all installed, quite tidy. Still missing a stop cable on the engine, so 1 or 2 little bits to do, but very tidy I think. Now she's a sailing vessel, so a sailing vessel needs 2 things, and here's one of them. Mast, or masts in this case. It's a schooner rig, so 2 masts. Well, schooner doesn't necessarily mean 2 masts, as I'm sure you know, but this is a 2-masted schooner. This is the forward of the two masts laid here. It's finished, it's ready to go. It's got a section on it where the anchor windlass will fit on that mast. All done. And this one is the main mast, the aft of the two, which is nearly finished, as you can tell. I hope I've got alternating layers of fiberglass on there, and the reason for the alternation there is so it can stand on the stands, and these are now dry, and I'll move the stands and do the bits in between so it's completely glassed. It's all shaped up, done. Masthead fitting fits, as you can tell, up there, and swinging back to the other end I've squared up the foot. It will have a top light on the top, obviously, but that's basically done. And behind it there you can see the keel, long keel. The rudder fits on that. That's the aft end we're looking at there. The rudder fits on the very aft end there at the bottom, and scanning forwards along the keel, see the keel bolts protruding at the top, so the ballast keel is down there. It's basically 1.3 tons of lead in a steel box, ballast keel, and that will bolt up underneath the boat. Those bolts there pass through the floors, which are the timbers that go across ways in the keel of the boat, and we'll have big washers on them and bolt the whole thing up there, obviously with a load of sealant or epoxy basically between the two. So that's something that I want to do in the yard when I get it up there. And the last thing, covered in dust at the moment sadly, but here in the back corner of the shed, is the rudder as it stands. It still needs a tiller fitting on the top. That's the rudder, and if you look, if I give you the top view, you'll see that there's a airfoil shape to that. Top end plates in place. It will have bottom end plates as well. Just backing up. So that's all done and waiting to fit. As I say, the rudder fittings themselves I don't have. Still got to make those. The tiller fitting. I've got some stuff laid around here. Swim ladder. That piece of wood, which will probably be the tiller one day. Some other bits and bobs. An outboard motor in the corner there. And perhaps the final excitement, and it doesn't look very exciting here because it's draped in plastic and got all sorts of junk on top of it, but there are the two sails rolled up and they're all done, ready to go. I've got to make the yards which go at the top of each sail that they hang off of, but other than that the sails are complete, all battens done and ready to hang really. Well, I hope you can imagine there are other bits that are finished and I haven't shown you. For example, water tanks are in, they're under the V-berth. The V-berth is divided into 3 sections. One section has water tanks in with a selector, so you can select which of the 2 tanks to draw from. Plumb through to the galley and the heads, all done, finished. The electrics bay is done. It needs one more battery, the service battery. I've only got a temporary battery in now, but the motor battery's in, selector switches are in, battery charger is in, connected up, inverter, solar controllers, it's all done and hooked up. So that's pretty much where we are, I think. No doubt there are other bits I haven't thought of to tell you about, no doubt, but that's what I've achieved working on my own, I say part-time, in 5 years now. It's 5 years since I started lofting the lines. A few months before that working on the shed, getting that ready, but 5 years since I drew the first of the, actually started laying out the boards for the lofting lines. And I think that's, with hindsight, a reasonable achievement. I've worked hard, and I think that's what you can expect to achieve in that kind of time if you're planning a build yourself. Obviously everybody's different. There will be variations at the time you've got available, and then the speed you work at, and the complexity of your build all play a role clearly, and how much assistance you get from elsewhere. But as I say, hopefully a useful guideline if you're looking at a build. That's what I've done, that's for sure. And there we go, that's this week's video. I hope that's interesting and useful to some of you, having a look around the state of play. I hope it's clear that she's getting towards being finished. You know, obviously there are bits to do, let's not kid ourselves, but I'm quite pleased with progress, that we are actually getting close. And at various times I've announced launch dates which haven't happened. I'm pushing, I promise you, I'm pushing to get this thing launched as soon as I can, and I know when I think it's going to be launched now. Although I'm actually not going to say it. I'm not going to, I don't want to jinx it. We're getting close. This series of videos has been all about recording this build, you know, and as much of it as possible. I've recorded the vast majority of this build. I hope it's useful to you, to some of you, or interesting. If you like this sort of thing, please hit that subscribe button. Leave us a comment, as many of you often do. Always good to hear from you. I shall finish by thanking you for watching. Massive thank you to the lovely people who support us on Patreon. Patreon goes out for as little as $1 a month, or one of your currency units. Well, it depends where you are, but there are various currencies available, and one of them a month is the minimum. So it's, you know, a little bit chucked into the kitty. All money goes on the boat build, on the project, and is very much appreciated. So massive thank you to those lovely people who support us on Patreon or via PayPal me. And that's it for this week. See you next time with some actual building.